Mark asks, do you think Avengers Doomsday is going to join the $2 billion club, or will it be lucky to make $1 billion with the current state of the MCU? All right, thank you so much for that question. So I'm going to tell you why I'm really confident in my answer on whether or not Doomsday will cross that $2 billion mark. But first, let's recap where we are. So Avengers Doomsday, it is arguably the most important MCU film ever. This movie and its success or lack thereof could make or break this entire franchise. It's no secret that the MCU it has certainly taken a bit of a step down from the consistent bangers and the overall quality that we had come to expect after we got win after win after win with the Infinity Saga. I mean, especially, with phase 3 of the Infinity Saga, I can't think of a single movie in that saga that wasn't great. And they all killed it at the box office. Phase 3 made a whopping $13.4 billion in total at the worldwide box office. And the same, unfortunately, just cannot be said for the Multiverse Saga. Now, it certainly is not doing bad at the box office, especially compared to all films, but when you compare it to the Marvel Cinematic Universe and what they had come to expect at Marvel Studios, the MCU right now, the Multiverse Saga, is not breaking any records either. Part of that, of course, has to do with the pandemic plaguing Phase 4, but even during the pandemic, films like Spider-Man No Way Home cleared nearly $2 billion. But it's no secret that No Way Home and Deadpool and Wolverine, as we'll talk about in a second, they have kind of been outliers, I guess you could say, for this saga. So let's break all that down. Now, you could say that there are really 3 reasons the MCU has found itself in this current state. One, and this was unavoidable really, the end of the Infinity Saga was the crescendo. It was the point that we'd been leading to for 10 years worth of storytelling. And there's really nowhere to go but down from that point in terms of scale. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to have a drop in quality. That doesn't mean that just because you need to reduce the scale so you can build back up, that doesn't mean that a drop in quality was inevitable. But it does mean that a drop in, I guess you could say, stakes and having to go back to the drawing board and build up to a new big culmination event, that was going to be necessary. And with that comes an expected drop in box office. Of course, Infinity War and Endgame, they made the money they made, not just because they were two really great movies, but because of the movies that preceded them. The Infinity Saga films that built up to that moment are why Infinity War and Endgame made the money that they did, even though those films that led up to Infinity War and Endgame made nowhere near the amount of money that Infinity War and Endgame made. Now, reason number 2 the MCU is struggling is they made too much stuff for the Multiverse Saga. Even if every single thing that they had put out this saga had been great, there still just comes a point where you're just releasing too much and it becomes homework to keep up. I've even applied that to my YouTube channel and others' YouTube channels who asked me for advice. You don't want to put out too much stuff. Now, that doesn't mean you can't post daily. Posting daily is fine. But dependent upon the channel, it gets dangerous if you're dropping like 6 videos a day. Now, if they're shorter videos or maybe like news topics, that's more understandable, especially if you're covering the news. That is totally more understandable. But if you're putting in a lot of time and effort into a really like quality, like video essay type thing, you don't want to drop too many of them because you want to give people time to watch the one you made. I mean, people only have so much time to dedicate to the media that they consume, and you want them to consume your stuff. So if you put out too much stuff, they can't possibly consume it all. I hope that makes sense. And the same really applies to movies and TV shows. There are so many great shows like right now on TV or on streaming, like in general. I'm not just talking about like Marvel and Star Wars and stuff, but there are different streaming services that have all of these great shows, but it's just impossible to watch them all. And that results in you missing some of them or a lot of them. And with the MCU being so interconnected, when you just cannot find the time to watch all the MCU shows and the movies, but the shows especially, what that does is it results in people feeling like they are behind and like they can't watch the next show or movie that maybe they were looking forward to watching and setting time aside to watch because they feel like, oh, well, I can't watch it because I haven't watched the last one. And that results in even fewer viewers watching your new shows and movies, even shows and movies that maybe they want to see, but they feel like they can't because they're not caught up. So even if you find yourself in a situation where all the content you're putting out is great, and that unfortunately wasn't the case, as we'll discuss, but even if you are, if you're putting out too much of it and word of mouth can't get out about the show because people aren't watching it, that's a problem. And that brings me to really the third reason that the Multiverse Saga, the MCU, they're struggling right now, or at least they were. I think they really are starting to dig out of that hole. But it really comes down to it wasn't all good. The consistency that you used to expect when going into an MCU film, that unfortunately is now gone. And it used to be that when you went into an MCU movie, you knew it was going to be good. You knew that it was at least going to be a good movie, worth your time, worth your money, and that in all likelihood, it was going to be more than good. It was going to be great. But now when you go see an MCU movie, you're kind of rolling the dice and hoping that it will at least be good. And a lot of the Multiverse Saga, it has been very good. I myself have enjoyed most of it, but there have been too many examples of just subpar and sometimes just outright bad projects in this saga. And that has soiled the brand, because when you have a brand that is putting out consistent bangers, even if they don't start putting out bad content, but just like subpar, that's like, oh, that was fine. Even that can really start to hurt a brand. And, I'll throw in a fourth reason here. The MCU, it was partially such a success because we cared so much about the characters, Tony and Steve especially, and they've been gone for this saga. So that is also going to hurt the Multiverse Saga when you take out the two main characters that the general audience just beloved from your continuing story. That was always going to be an obstacle in their way. And now, we're seeing RDJ is back. Chris Evans, he's a horrible liar. He's totally back. So I give you all that information, and it sounds like I'm about to predict that Avengers Doomsday will not cross the $2 billion mark and that it would be lucky to hit $1 billion. But not so fast. Not what I'm saying. Let's take a look at the numbers. So the first Avengers movie made $1.52 billion. Age of Ultron made a tiny bit less than that, coming in at $1.4 billion. Now, we can speculate on why that was. I would think that it's really just Age of Ultron didn't reach the same level of just huge pop culture phenomenon that was that first Avengers movie. So it makes sense that it made just a tiny bit less. But it pretty much made the same. It just fell a little bit short. But then came Infinity War and Endgame, which blew the original and Age of Ultron both out of the water. Infinity War made $2 billion and Endgame made $2.8 billion. That's right. The last Avengers movie to come out, Endgame, made $200 million short of $3 billion at the box office. So let's do some math and connect this with what we can expect for Avengers Doomsday. For Avengers Doomsday to come in under the $2 billion mark, it would need to make just over 28% less than Avengers Endgame. So that means Doomsday would need to have a 28% drop at the box office from Endgame in order for it not to hit the $2 billion mark. If it gets to, say, $1.9 billion, $1.99 billion, and doesn't quite cross $2 billion, that will mean that it had at least a 28% drop from Endgame. So let's see if that is something that has happened before within this franchise. Let's take a look back at the other Avengers films. So Infinity War, it made over $500 million more than its predecessor, Age of Ultron, and Endgame made nearly $800 million more than its predecessor, Infinity War. The only Avengers film to make less than its predecessor was Age of Ultron, which made only $115 million less than that first Avengers film. That's roughly an 8% drop. Again, the only Avengers movie to make less than its predecessor, to make less than the previous one, was Age of Ultron, and it was only an 8% drop. For Doomsday, this means for Doomsday, it will have to have at least a 28% drop from its predecessor, Avengers Endgame. And I just don't see that happening. I could be wrong, but I'm not saying that Doomsday is going to make more than Endgame, but I do not see it making 28% less when you compare it to how the other films in the franchise have performed. Now, could it make more than 8% less? Could it be the biggest drop we've seen between Avengers films since Ultron and Infinity War? Sure, maybe it makes 10% less. Oh my God, if the world ends, maybe it makes 15% less. But I see no scenario where it makes 28% less. Now, I could be wrong. The MCU, it's in a rough spot right now, as is the entire movie industry, to be fair. Movies just aren't making the kind of money they used to at the box office, but No Way Home, like we said, in the midst of a pandemic, made over $1.9 billion, nearly hit that $2 billion, and Deadpool and Wolverine, an R-rated movie, made over $1.3 billion, and that was just last year. And it was a very multiverse, TVA-focused movie. No Way Home was, of course, a very multiverse-heavy movie. You have a lot of people, try to say, oh, people are tired of the multiverse of it all. I'm not so sure that's the case. So here's the other thing. Right. Okay, I'm on it. Guys, the holidays are coming up, so I wanted to share with you a cool new game console by the sponsor for today's video, The Next Playground. This is a game system that has full body motion sensing technology, meaning your entire body becomes the controller. I love a present that you can unbox immediately and start playing with the whole family. And this is exactly what I'm going to be bringing to my holiday get-togethers this year. It's super easy to set up, it's plug and play, no complicated equipment needed. I'm personally really excited to play the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game, but I know my nephews are going to be looking forward to playing the Bluey game. So if you're interested in picking one up for yourself or as a gift for someone else, or hey, both, go to the Amazon link in the description below to get yours now. And when I say now, I mean like now, because they are having a Black Friday through Cyber Monday sale, and by using my link in the description below, you will get $50 off your order. This game system is so much fun, guys, and I know you're gonna love it. Now, back to the show. And, I've also heard people make the argument, oh, well, of course, Spider-Man No Way Home and Deadpool and Wolverine made a lot of money. There's Spider-Man and Deadpool and Wolverine, and oh, geez, like Hugh Jackman and Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield were all back. It was a big deal. And yes, it was a big deal. And yes, that played a major role in why those movies made more than the others in this saga, because people are just more interested. It's more of a pop culture impact, I guess you could say, when you have these big OG characters returning with returning cast. Well, guess what? Avengers Doomsday? It's Spider-Man No Way Home and Deadpool and Wolverine smashed together and on steroids. Robert Downey Jr. is back. The original X-Men are back. It hasn't been confirmed, but I'm pretty certain Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man and of course Hugh Jackman's Wolverine and Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool, they will all be back as well. And I think Chris Evans will be back. So if we're going to compare this Avengers movie to the more recent MCU films in order to determine the box office performance that we're expecting, it's films like Deadpool and Wolverine and Spider-Man No Way Home that we should be comparing it to for reference over films like Brave New World or Quantumania that didn't perform quite as well. And yeah, Doomsday, it's a culmination event for this saga, the Multiverse Saga. And yes, there appears to be far less interest in the Multiverse Saga than in the Infinity Saga. I don't think anyone would dispute that. But this movie, Doomsday, it is also serving as a culmination event to the entire Marvel movie franchise. It is a sequel, I think, to Avengers Endgame. It's a culmination event of all of Marvel, not just the Multiverse Saga and not just the MCU. This movie it's a cultural event amongst the entire planet, really, that connected to the classics that predate the MCU. And everyone is going to go see this movie. And I'm just confident that it makes at least $2 billion. It makes a billion easy, makes a billion in its sleep. And I think it does cross that $2 billion mark, like Infinity War and Endgame before it. And then I think if it's great, Secret Wars, it's going to make even more than Doomsday did. Do we see finally an Avengers film hit the $3 billion mark? I I don't think so. I think if any film is ever going to hit the $3 billion mark, it's probably going to be an Avatar movie. James Cameron is just, I don't know. He made a deal with somebody, a devil or something, or something. But dude has like what, 3 of the top 5 box office films of all time were directed by James Cameron. I don't know that we ever see really a $3 billion box office movie. I'd say maybe 50 years from now, when you adjust for inflation, maybe. But when you account for the decline in interest of going to the movie theaters and with the rise of streaming, I just don't know that that's ever going to happen. But that's a conversation for another time. All right, let's move on to our next question. Hey everybody, Colton here, and this is the mailbag style show where I take your questions about Marvel, Star Wars, DC, movies and streaming in general. Whatever you want to ask, send it in at the email address askcoltonnow@gmail.com, and hey, maybe you'll see your question featured right here on the show. And guys, I get a lot of questions sent to the mailbag, and I wish I could answer every single one of them, but sometimes I just cannot get to them all. But if you are a channel member, that does guarantee that you get one of your questions answered right here on the show every show. So if you want to support the channel in that way, it is very much appreciated. And remember, the show is now on Spotify, Apple Podcast, all the podcasting places. So please, if you've got a sec, give the show a download. It really helps us out a lot.